Well, good morning, everybody. I got 10 o'clock Mountain Standard Time, 9 Pacific, and I think it should be noon Eastern. So thanks for taking the next hour out of your day. We're going to be in the client file. I think I'm in QBOA, but I'm going to dive into a client file real quick once we get through a few slides. Accountant best practices in the client's QuickBooks Online file. So we're not going to go over QBOA at all, probably, and I'll show you the agenda. But it's mostly, I'm trying to think of everything possible you might want to know about in the client file, which is kind of silly because probably could do that for 4 hours. So I'm trying to abbreviate as best I can, and thanks for taking the time. I'll introduce myself in a second, but I wanted to go over some administrative things just in case you've never been to GoToWebinar before. You should be seeing the first slide of the deck. Nothing's changed there. I do have a few polls to ask, 2 in the beginning, 1 at the end. They do not go to marketing, though. You shouldn't get an email outside of a follow-up email today, or tomorrow. I forget when I set it, probably 24 hours after the event. There's a questions field where you can ask questions, and I have that open, so I'll try to keep track of that as we go along. I don't usually wait to the end, so I'll try to address them as we're rolling through, particularly if it's a thematic question that others have. So feel free to ask them. You can also download in the handout section of GoToWebinar. Hopefully you should see some kind of handout section. That's what it looks like to me. But anyway, the PDF of the PowerPoint deck. So I've uploaded that. It's a lot of slides, like 26 slides in there. So you might want to leverage that for your own internal training with clients or just thoughts, or feel free to share it around. If you're not seeing the PDF for whatever reason, then you can email me at woody_adams@intuit.com. I just put that in the chat room. So feel free to email me, and I can send it later on today. I should have time this afternoon to do that. Also, the web address of our product specialist site, which has short videos on stuff I'm going to show you, or recorded versions of this, qbobestpractices.com. That's another site, right? So here I am. I've been with Intuit since '04. I'm mostly on the QuickBooks side of the house, and I'm a certified pro advisor. I used to get certified in desktop, even enterprise. I've even been certified in point of sale, but gone are those days. I'm really focused on QuickBooks Online. But like you, I still support the desktop products. I don't do much of point of sale anymore, but certainly Accountant Edition and Enterprise Accountant. So I have those installed every year. I got 2019 installed, which I downloaded from my Pro Advisor locker in QuickBooks Online Accountant. Also, I do a bi-weekly show with Stacy Kildall still. It used to be called Radio Free QuickBooks. Now it's the QBO show, so you can find out more about that at that link. And in the PowerPoint slide, you should have the link to the matrix as well, where you can just view online. It's an online spreadsheet, kind of compares different feature sets across the QuickBooks ecosystem, Pro, Premier, Enterprise, the Accountant Editions, Essentials, and Plus. I know there's Simple Start too, but you probably don't have a lot of clients on Simple Start. Also, you can we're having these webinars this week, and then I think we have them twice each in the month of January. Then we're shutting them down till, after tax season. But so you have 3 more chances to view this. It's the Beyond the Basics of Service for service-based businesses. So we go heavier on job costing, pass-through time, expense, material, reporting, profitability by sub-customer project, that kind of thing. And then product-based workflows, inventory, 2-sided items. So 2 separate Beyond the Basic type webinars just to dive through the settings. Today I'm going to show those settings, but I'm not really going to show the results, just from a time allotment. So these will be the ones where I can go heavier and focus on just service-based workflows, just product-based workflows. So these are registration links, and they should also be in the PDF, or email me if you're not seeing them. And then free resources, our product specialist video site, a great YouTube tutorial site for clients. There's free real-world training for clients, a whole YouTube channel, Firm of the Future site, and things like that. So definitely grab a hold of the PDF. Now, my 4 main tenets of QBO. No file transfer, which is pretty obvious, right? Yeah, you guys are muted, but you should be able to hear me. Is anybody else saying they can't hear me right now? You guys hear me okay? Let me just answer this one attendee. Yeah, good. All right, thanks, Theodore. I appreciate it. Yeah, so most people can hear me. Okay, the PDF, yeah, it's just a handout section. It's in the handout section. If you don't see it, just email me, woody_adams@intuit.com. All right, so collaboration within the firm as well as with your client, right? So no file transfer or anything like that. And then automation of data entry. We'll look at that with the bank feeds today and recurring transactions. So that's how you'd automate data entry outside of a third-party app. And then mobility, though I'm not really going to show that. There is a phone app, right, that connects to all this. But those are my main tenets of QBO. But it's not just about the phone app for mobility. You can just be anywhere with high-speed internet access and plug in, right? So there's that. And I'm really just answering today the automation of data entry, and that's probably it. Why QBO Plus? Everything that's in Essentials, so accounts payable, recurring transactions, delayed charges, multi-currency, plus, 5 users, class location tracking. So if you're used to class tracking on the desktop, right, that's in there. Inventory and purchase orders, even though the inventory is first in, first out, it's there. And then pass-through time expense, either at the item level or the account, profitability by project, right, and then budgets. So these are the things where Plus, Essentials doesn't have those, and but QuickBooks Pro on the desktop is. So this one is most akin to QuickBooks Pro. And then if you're used to that with your desktop clients, then you probably have most of your clients on Plus as well, right? But I feel like that this is kind of, for me, it's where it starts is Plus. I know it's the highest level, well, not the highest level of QBO. We're having this advanced level come out soon. You might have heard about it. It's already out. It's just not in QBOA yet. But we'll have a webinar in January or after tax season on QuickBooks Online Advanced. But right now, Plus, right? So you probably have most of your clients on QBO Plus, right? And now I'm about to open a pull-up, but I wanted to go over the agenda. So we'll be in the client file, start with the new overview tab, go to report tools, batch or classify, the audit log report, talk about that. I mean, QBO is really more fraud preventative than, say, desktop because of this audit log report. So we'll look at that. And the close date, right? Then other settings to consider. That's when we spend some time in accountant settings and just going through some sales and expense settings that aren't default turned on, just so you know what's there. And then there's an advanced tab as well in settings to where we can talk about automation and things like that. Then the best way to get data entry in there, bank feeds. We'll go to bank feeds and rules, another way to automate the entry and the categorization. Then I'll look at some low-hanging fruits of issues clients will make. So chart of accounts, maybe merge accounts, look at reconciliation, quickly on reporting. And then there's some other client mistakes with opening balance equity, AR we could look at as well. And then if we have some time, we'll look at just an overview of user security, right? So and that's pretty much what we'll be going through today. This is what QBOA looks like. I'm going to literally dive into this client file. I usually just click on the QB icon in the status column, right? And when you hover over it, it tells you the level of QBO. Again, most of my clients are on Plus. And then it's who I'm the last person who signed in today. I was probably prepping for this. Drops me into the file. So now we're in the client file. And again, if there's an issue with not seeing my desktop, for whatever reason, please let me know. Now, we're going to start with the Overview tab because it's pretty new, right? Click on Overview. Now, I think one day, see how it says New here? You'll probably land here as a QBOA team member. Remember, as a team member of QBOA, when you have access to a client file, whether it's just you and you're the master admin of QBOA, or whether you have 10 or 15 or 30 team members, you're essentially a company admin on that file, right? But I'm hoping one day as we build out the Overview tab, this is where you will land. But why I like the Overview tab and why I think it's still even worth it for just version 1 of it, it tells me the level of QBO they're on, which we already know. If they have payroll, do they have sales tax enabled? And what are the apps, the third-party apps that they have connected to this file? I didn't need to connect them. Sorry for that grammar. I didn't need to connect them at all. They connected it, but I can see the apps they have in the file. I mean, I have no apps tab in the left-hand panel. They do, I don't. They could invite me to it. But I know that this one has payroll, QVinci, which is a reporting app, an auto entry app, and then I turned routines on in Labs, right? So I can, basically it's just getting alerts about invoices and stuff. But it's helpful to know what apps they have. What third-party apps are they using with QBO, et cetera. And then I see some banking information, the current balance, what's in QuickBooks, the unaccepted transactions, meaning the transactions that are in the for review tab of bank feeds. So I see that right away, and then what's not reconciled, right? So this kind of helps me know what I'm up against in the file. They've never reconciled the credit card accounts. So, and then, they're pretty current, I guess, as the last quarter of the checking account. So you see some high-level info there. And then common issues. So there's about 8 common issues we're surfacing up, mostly around undeposited funds, uncategorized income expense asset, opening balance equity, and then you have negative asset and liability accounts. I can view other reports. I can go quickly to the chart of accounts here or the balance sheet and P&L. Now, these will just take me to the register. When I click on 3 unclear transactions of undeposited funds, it takes me into the register just so I can see, what led to that amount. And so I think that can be helpful, and then it brings you back to the chart of accounts. So I have to click back to overview. So there's some things I'd like to change about this, like maybe bring me to a report instead. Okay, but I can look at opening balance equity, and we don't want anything in opening balance equity. But now I can see what happened there. And look, they were doing starting value adjustments to inventory. Typical culprit, usual suspect, right? But now I'm going to tangent throughout today on low-hanging mistakes that clients will make because we're in the client file. This is what this webinar is about today. So I'll go back to the overview tab in a sec, right? Then we'll go to report tools and keep rolling along. And then the tool most people use is batch classify. But what are some other ways that they put stuff in opening balance equity? Now, opening balance equity is an account that you don't want to see on the balance sheet, particularly at tax time, because it doesn't mean anything really. You would want to journal entry it to a partner equity account. We have this account in desktop. We also have it in, right here, this account, right? We just offset it. Anything they do, really, when they enter new stuff. So how do they make these mistakes? Well, they can create a new chart of account, right? And we'll say it's like some, bank account maybe. This is typical, right? We'll call it like petty cash or something. They're creating this. Look, balance field. So, oh yeah, that's right. There's $12,000 in petty cash. Well, that's going to debit petty cash $12,000, right? But it has to offset something, right? It's going to credit opening balance equity, right? But we don't want it there. So how do you do that? You either make a register or you do a deposit form or something like that, or a journal entry. That's way better. You don't want, I wish we could turn these balance fields off on accounts. So there's that. This will credit OBE, which you don't really want to do, okay? The other ways that this happens is a vendor, right? Or a customer, either way. I'm creating a new vendor to some, vendor account, whatever it is. We'll call it, I don't know, Office Depot or something, Costco, maybe Costco, whatever vendor. But again, the point is opening balance. Right? Like, yeah, I owe, well, that's not a really good example because you're using a credit card, but let's just say it's some other vendor that you're paying, right? Yeah, I owe them $1,500, right? So that's going to credit AP and should debit the OBE. Customers be similar, it's credit OBE. Sometimes you'll see negative OBE, right? Inventory adjustments, right? Offsetting account. You can choose it, but actually this is when it happens. Sorry, products and services. If we go to the items list itself, and they add a new inventory part, this is the other one. They'll put in the initial quantity on hand. You don't want to do that because that's going to debit inventory asset and credit. Yep, opening balance equity. That's why they're seeing it. That's why I had those 4 in the register. So pretty easy to troubleshoot from the overview tab or just drill down from the balance sheet account on opening balance equity. You probably see it, transaction detail report. And you probably have other means to do it, but that's typically how I look at it. So any kind of new item list element, customer, vendor, account, item type, inventory, quantity, they don't want to fill out either the quantity on hand or the balance fields. That hits opening balance equity, right? You don't want to see that. Now, oftentimes you are doing a journal entry, initial balances, and you will hit opening balance equity, but you guys will always just, journal entry it to owner capital or owner investment or whatever equity account, partner investment, whatever you want to call it, that makes sense from a balance sheet perspective on the tax return or reporting in general. So stay away from OBE. It is an account. I don't even think you can get rid of it. But let's go to the chart of accounts real quick. Right, it's going to be there, but we don't want to see a balance, and I do. I mean, I could just view register here, but from the overview tab, that's, drilling in there. Same with undeposited funds, right? Click on it, and I can see the undeposited funds. Or you could do it on a balance sheet. But this overview tab, net, it goes to the register. It's going to surface up like 5 or 6 specific things on common issues. They are asking the product manager, who we had the show on recently, they're asking for feedback as urgent as possible as they build out, hey, what common issues do you want us to surface up? Okay, so that this would be the place you would land first, and you'd see exactly what Woody's doing wrong, right? Like, I'd love to see the open AR that, still have open credits and stuff. That would be awesome. Now, where you give feedback is the upper right, okay? Now, the other tool to go to as well when you're in a client file, you have the accountant toolbox, right? It's the briefcase-looking icon to the left of, the name of the file you're in. And there are several tools we'll look at just over the next, 5 or 7 minutes. I do like the report tools, this one, and I'll try to show tab browsing as well. How do you get open windows all in one fell swoop? But you go down to like the 4th one from the bottom, report tools. If you're used to QuickBooks Accountant Edition, you have the accountant menu. This is similar in theory, right? We have this briefcase, an accountant menu, if you will. It doesn't have the same number of features, of course, but we're trying to be thematic. You're in the client file from QBOA, so you have an accountant menu. We just call it the toolbox, right? It's like a lunchbox, whatever. So I can set that this would be this year-to-date accrual. Now, if we go to accountant reports or your custom reports, right? A quick way to get to those reports. Management reports is a report package that you can build out yourself. But I'm just going to go to reports in the left-hand menu. Any company financial summary report, I've set that default, right? I went to report tools. I chose this year-to-date accrual basis. So when I click on a P&L or the balance sheet or the profit and loss detail, several of these reports are going to reflect that date range, this year-to-date accrual basis. Right? So you're going to have that. I'm going to right-click the tab I'm on, duplicate. That gives me a second window. It's going to give me the exact same report I just had up, but now I can go somewhere else. So report tools, that allows me to set a default date range for company financial summary reports, not for the detail reports, really. I mean, the P&L detail will open to that, and the balance sheet, and several other reports, but most reports open to this month. Okay, like the GL, the trial balance, you'll see that. So that's like the default date range of QBO, and there's no setting that would change that. And there's no real setting to change the basis either of the reports. Now I'm going to open up another tab because you're thinking, well, wait a minute, I have seen an advanced setting for basis. So what do you mean? Now, gear icon, this is where your operational stuff is, okay? Lists, tools, one way to get to reconcile. Audit log report, which we'll look at a little later, right? Manage users at the very end, we'll try to look at. But accountant settings, right? This is like edit preferences. There is, in fact, and we'll leave this tab up because we'll be back here a little later on. Advanced. You do have this accounting method kind of basis preference, but it only impacts a few tools. The trial balance tool that I can think of. If I change this to cash, it doesn't mean my reports are going to open up to this. This setting doesn't really do anything from what I've seen. And we'll come back to closed books because that's important. But I just wanted to mention that, because I made a mention that, well, there's no real set that a default basis unless you save the customization of the report. Sorry. All right, Alex has asked, in management reports, I wish it would show whether it is cash or accrual at the bottom of the reports. Also would like to be able to reorder the reports in management reports. Yeah, so let's look at that, because if this is the time of the year you would leverage management reports because you need the SARS 21 information at the bottom. And when I add notes to like a regular P&L, if it's a multi-page P&L, these characters, the no CPA has, whatever, will only show up on the last page of the report. So oftentimes, well, I think for GAAP compliance, you need to have that info on the bottom of every page of the report, right? So let's hang with reporting a bit, then we'll get back to settings and some of the other tools that I think are important. But let's just do this. I'm going to select the previous period. Actually, let's just add a year-to-date, percent year-to-date for now. Step off, right, run report, and I have the report I want. Now, I'm going to switch it to cash because a couple of things I want to show. I know, ironically, I said a default for accrual, but I'm switching it to cash because you can always change basis at the top of the report, right? There's that. So now, unapplied cash payment income, right? You're like, what? And then sometimes you see it on the expense side. It's, do I have anything? Do I have any like bill payments that are dated before the bill date? Or do I have any vendor credits? That's what it is. You'll see it on the expense side, but on the unapplied cash payment income, just so you know, because I'm in the client file, I might as well talk about it. That's not a bug. That's just how it's designed. I have some credits that have not been applied or payments not applied, or the invoice was dated after the payment, customer invoice, right? So you want to drill down on it, but I don't want to lose a summary report. So again, one last time, right-click, duplicate the tab you're on. Okay? That's going to give you, you know, another report. Now I can drill down on that, and I can figure out what they did. Invoice, there's a payment. Date's the 13th. Invoice was the 1st. You guys are probably better at troubleshooting that kind of stuff. You might be able to tell me why. Stuff still in undeposited funds. But anyway, that unapplied payment income is because I had payments still yet to apply to invoices, and it's on a cash basis. So we include it as income in there, but it's unapplied, right? Hasn't been applied to the open invoice. So there's that. But that's how you get open windows, okay? Now, let's say you like this report. Let's talk about a couple things. Customizing it, and then we'll go to management reports. Save your customizations. Do call it whatever, and I'll do it for today. And then look, you can create a group, add a new group, or add it to a specific group or not. These are just options. These last two options are just options. You can save it without adding it to a group or sharing it with anybody. But adding it to a group allows me to auto-send it. That's something you can do as well, because there's automation of data entry and sending of reports and some transactions in QBO. So I can add it to a group or not. And then you can share it with firm only. So just me and Alexa are the only ones that see this report because we're in the same team QBOA. Right? And the client doesn't. Not even the master admin of the file, which the client will see the report. Or I can share it with anybody who has the access, you know, to see a P&L, which is basically the all user, the company admin, or the master admin, of course, right? Now, let's go back to the reports list because I want to touch on management reports. But remember, in case I don't think about it again, save your customizations. You have your custom reports here. Wait. Hold on here. I should see more than that. Maybe not. But yeah, see reports that have been created and created by a different firm or me or a different accountant, you know, mostly me. But there's two different firms that are attached to this file. That's why you see the name there, right? So this is my memorized report list, if you will. Okay, and then you have the standard report list, which you're on, and then we'll go to management reports. Now, I will forget this, so I want to do it while I'm remembering. On a detail report, you don't want amount and balance, right? You want debit credit. Know that you can do this quickly on the fly, and then Alexa, I'll get to your question next. Gear icon, the little gear icon on listen reports, not the main one up top, the little one on listen reports. This is where you change columns and settings. On the customer list, the vendor list, you know, sales window, invoices window, always in chart of accounts, bank feeds, always look for the little gear icon, things to check on or off. And the column should remain sticky. On reports, of course, you have to save the customization, right? So you're memorizing the report, if you will. So I'm going to get rid of memo, and I'm going to get rid of amount and balance, and you add debit credit, right? Step off. And now I have, you know, the debit credit report. This would work on a P&L detail, transaction detail by account, GL. I think you can add debit credit, trial balance. Obviously, already is one. But drilling down on the balance sheet, anywhere where you're drilling down and you want debit credit, I mean, I wish it was the default, but it's not. It's amount balance, and now you know how to go change it on the fly. And then just save it. Right? Save the customizations and then run it next time. Okay? So just want to make sure you're aware of that. Now, management reports. When you're in a client file, you will go to management reports, and I think this is pertinent for this time of the year because you have the SARS 21 at the bottom of every report page. So how do you get that? A lot of firms just use this as a workaround for that alone. We're going to give you, now you see 5 templates because I created 3 templates off of these 2. We give you, when you're in a client file, you have standard reports, which is your report list, custom reports, which is your customized reports you've actually saved or another team member has or client, management reports. This doesn't give you any extra customization per se, except for a default header or footer, but I already have customized reports that I'm going to include in the package. So we give you a basic company financial and expanded company financial. And you just click view. Now they go to a doc, a Word doc or a PDF, and you can email them. Now I forgot to mention when you save the customized reports, like you have, your memorized reports in QBO, those can be auto-sent if you add them to a group. So anyway, let me edit. Sorry, not view, edit. You want to edit the template. Now you can build it out. So I can choose the firm logo, call it what I want, right? Here is where I would put, no CPAS, and then et cetera. Everybody's different in what they say here, but right. So that, and it's always going to be left indented. It's good, but this puts it on the bottom of the report pages, all of them. So you have this. You can. Sorry, that's not. You click on Advanced tab. This is where it is. Yeah, there we go. The default footer. No CPA has. That's where it's going to show. You can also do default header, and then report end date. There's that, but there's no real extra headers per se. The default one, you can add an extra footer. That'll be at the bottom. You can put it. We will build out the table of contents for you, preliminary pages, which you can copy paste, and then the reports. Maybe you don't want statement of cash flow, but Alex's point, how do you rearrange it? You have to delete them all out. So I suggest taking the basic template and start from scratch. Like there's nothing here right now. Just to hit the pencil, click the trash can, add a new report, and then choose your customized one, right? I have that, and then I have, a P&L, and, choose from your customized ones you've already customized, or you can choose from any of the canned reports. And we're going to show you the customized reports first, and then you can go through and maybe add AP aging or AR aging 2 or whatever. It should default to this year, and then there's these date range options that all the reports can look to. But each report can look to a different period, but why? Like they do. Why would I do that? It should be this year too. This year to date or something like that. So they should all do that. But it hasn't changed much, this functionality. And then you just print or preview it just to show you what it looks like and save it under a different name, and save it with a date or whatever so that you don't have to recreate the template the next time. So management report, right? Firm logo or not. You don't have to show a logo. Table of contents, and then here are the reports. Balance sheet first, comparison. At the bottom would be the SARs, okay? You can't really mess with the font at all or the indentation. That's just how it is. So that's management reports. And also, so do check that out. You will see standard reports, custom reports, management reports. Now you know how to add debit, credit, and save customizations as well. Now, the other thing to consider would be reclassify transactions. It's another tool. So we went to report tool to set the default date range, spend some time on reports. And then you have the overview tab. The reclassify transactions, probably the most used accountant tool in QBO or Accountant Edition. The ability, which by the way, it will inherit the report tool's default date range. So I have it on accrual basis. And, I can drill into a cost of goods sold, and I can see the transactions that are hitting cost of goods sold. Now, the invoices, why would they be in there? Inventory, right? Inventory debits cost of goods sold when you sell it. So you'd see it's not abnormal to see invoices and sales receipts in the cost of goods sold account. But what I like is I know this was designed to batch reclassify miscoded transactions. Some of my friends in the industry will use this, even beyond reporting, just to drill down on an account, because Woody knows not to use a bill for fuel. We talked about this. It's a credit card or debit card expense only. So I can sort the column. and look for a bill and then drill down on it, void it, and then do, an expense. It's stuff like that. How are you training them throughout the year? What's the best way to bird's eye it? Let's look at office supplies. Oh, good. So he's using mostly expenses. I don't see any checks or anything. Yeah. Well, yeah, because it's probably an inventory part or something bought from there. Not abnormal. Then you even see the journal entries too. But the nice thing is you might have stuff that should not have been office supplies, like McCain appliances. That is actually totally separate. And I know the lines are a little off the further you go on, so just hover over. But this should not be. McCain's appliances is totally different. So I can look through the account for whatever reason. You might think that's fine, but I'm just giving you an example. And then I can change it to, something totally different. It's actually, we rent equipment from them, a big printer. And it just reclassifies it in a batch because Woody's going to miscode transactions. And then you're going to be able to go in and recode them properly. Now, you can only recode account-based transactions, but you can change a class for all different types, right? All different types. Because some people want to do class tracking, which is also a setting. Let's quickly go over there. It's an advanced setting. We'll come back to close date, but do look in the advanced setting because not always are they turned on. Actually, class and location by default is not. You're in Pro and you wanted to, all right, cancel that, right? You want to do a profit and loss by location or by division or department or something like that. I mean, if you're using desktop, you've used class tracking before. So there's two different types. There's class and location tracking. Class usually is at each row of a transaction, so you're splitting it out. So that would support the splits, and then location is, one per transaction. So you could use that for something else, right? You're always trying to get a report to divide by something, different metrics. So class location tracking is in QBO Plus. This is where you go turn it on. Some people just use class. One thing to mention, there's no real viable balance sheet by class tracking in QBO Plus. Balance sheet by location's fine, but a lot of times, from accountants I talk to, it's just about the profit and loss, and that can be for both, right? And we even have a P&L by class, P&L by location. Just a different way to measure profitability. You might be using customers for something else, projects for jobs. So class can be for a higher level P&L. Usually location, division, department is typical. Fund, grant, I don't know. Nonprofits use it a lot. Just not at the balance sheet will you have class. It'll be location, sure. Just know location is one per transaction. And we'll be on a transaction I'll be able to show you. So that's class location tracking. But I could grab a bunch of these things and move them to a different class. All these ones for whatever reason. And I could just do a different account, or I could just move it to a totally different class. This is for overhead. And that helps me on a P&L, right? Now, some people look at balance sheet accounts too, though I cannot reclassify when they're written from the wrong account, like Woody was supposed to write this from checking, but all his payroll accounts he did from petty because it would petty cash for whatever reason, because he didn't realize that it was sticky and he did it wrong once, so now the 6 months paychecks came from petty cash, that kind of stuff. I can't really reclassify at the source account, but the target account I can. But again, looking at this year to date, particularly this time of the year, you might just drill down to see. You have a credit memo, deposit, what types of transactions are in these accounts, right, that I should see. I shouldn't see any weird stuff like an inventory asset. Sales receipts, good, inventory adjustments, and again, you're bird's eyeing the account just to see what type of activity is happening in the account. And then this would work for OBE as well to see what caused it. Accumulated depreciation, that should be just journal entries. Must have been from last year or something. There's a negative amount, though. That's weird. Upfront deposits. Okay. I don't know why he's doing an invoice for an upfront deposit. That's weird. It should be a deposit or a sales receipt. Again, you'll look for things that are red flags for you, too. Batch classify is great. I mean, it was designed to batch classify miscoded transactions. That's obvious. But also use it to bird's eye accounts and find wrong transaction entry in an account. Just know it's okay if a customer invoice is in hitting COGS, because that's actually when it's debited, the inventory part itself. Okay, so key things. The overview tab, right? Couple settings, we'll go back there, batch or classify. Now, I did want to quickly go to close date, and then we'll dive into, it is an advanced one, right? You can set a close date. When you're done working in the file, right, like I would have been at the end of October, right, you can set a password. Yeah, Diana, that's fine. I'll send you the recording and the deck, so I'll just leave your name up. The PDF and the recording. So in the close date, right, it behaves a lot like desktop, where you can put, so if someone was to either edit, void, delete something before 1031 that was dated before 1031/18, they would get a password prompt. Now, it's true, company admins and master admins, so it's probably your client, they're at least a company admin, they're probably a master admin. They can go in and uncheck it, right? So there is that. But is Woody going to know where it is, and is he even going to look? I think it's more like just to prompt them to text me or email me or call the firm. Say, hey, I'm trying to void this check from October, and it's not letting me. And you're like, exactly. So then you can, you could ask me, why are you wanting to void that? There might be a better way. So let me go handle it, right? So close date's in there and important to consider. Now, I think I made a point of fraud prevention in QBO. There is a voided deleted transaction report, okay? So the main tool is to walk away with under the toolbox. I don't use a trial balance because it's like once a year. When we make that a date range, I mean, this isn't the report, it's a tool, by the way. It's cool, it's a working trial balance, but it's just going to look at 2018, versus 17, which is good this time of year. I mean, you might go check it out, but you might want a monthly or quarterly engagement. So when we put a date range flag in there, then I think will be more powerful. But it's a working trial balance, and it works fine. Work paper references and attachments and stuff like that. Compare accounts to last year. And it's also where you connect to or integrate with ProConnect Tax Online if you're doing, sending the balances over to our online tax software. So we integrate with that tax software alone directly. You can always send a trial balance report to Excel, though. All right, classify transactions important. Report tools important. Set a default date range for your company financial summary reports and a few others, and some of the tools like Batch Classify opens up to the report tool default. Quick ways to get to your reports, reconcile another way of close books, right? Void deleted transaction report. This will show what Woody deleted and voided since the last time I was in the file. Remember, you're already better than the desktop experience because you're not waiting for me to send you an accountant's copy or a portable or backup once a year, which I guarantee is going to be messed up. You probably were in this file like 2 months ago, so it's only going to be 2 months of mess versus, 8. So QBO already has that advantage. You're in the file more often. It's not as much of a surprise or a shock. The work you have to do to get it ready for tax or report. So that's already a benefit of QBO. But the other thing is I can actually see when a user signs in and out and what they did when they delete stuff or void it. Like this is voided an example. And I can go through and view, right, the deleted expense from December 12th. It was actually created August 21st. I mean, you can go back. It was added by Leah, right? And I go through and see what it was. Manual added with a rule. So it's from the bank feed. And then I did an edit on November 5th. Oh, I changed it to not cleared or something because I did it in the register. We do recs in the reconcile, right? Not the register. Then I guess I made it a C. I did a lot on the 27th. Clearly he was confused. And then on the 29th, I actually force reconciled it. Or maybe it was reconciled, but I changed the account. And then on the 12th, I deleted it. So this is just a good example of maybe a client that, is going to cause you a lot of headache. And, you shouldn't see this many. But it's helpful to see the history of the transaction, right? And it's built off of the audit log report itself. So you can go to the Gear Icon audit log, which is just the normal audit log. And, it always opens to this month. And it's going to show, look, I added a bunch of memorized reports, remember? Let's see here. Added in expenses. Yeah. So, and you can filter. What I like is I can clear the view. So it's going to look at all. Filter by particular users, looking at this month, show only these events maybe, just transactions that they did, or maybe sign in, sign out, right? So I can see for this month, it's mostly me. A lot on the purchase side. But yeah, there we go. We got, okay, system administrator, that's recurring transactions. And then there's someone else adding transactions. So anyways, the auto log's really helpful. But like, I should have this example built in, but it's such a sad example, I'd rather not do it. But still, someone signs in, they write a check, right? Print it, and then delete it. Wonder what happened there. Like that, where I think is more fraud preventative. The audit trail, yes, Miriam asks, is an audit trail in desktop, but you have to send it to Excel to really get a user-specific sign-in out and what they did story, whereas this is just right here, right? And there's a lot more filtering can you do. All events, I can just look at like time entry, you know, when do they sign in and out, you know, that might, and the transactions, right? So that could always be helpful. See, I logged in, then I did all this stuff. I just like that part of it. So I think I think that's why my friend Marty French says it's more of fraud preventative versus the desktop. Okay, audit log, you know where to go as well. Diana, that's still there, so I'll do that after the webinar. Okay, now, close date, audit log, reclassify, report tools, overview tab, great. Other key settings to consider. Let's go back to the settings tab. Now, I'm not going to have time to really show the results. Hopefully I can bring up a transaction just to show, but I want to get to bank feeds and rules, and we got to go through some other mistakes they'll make, you know, mushrooming AR. How do you merge chart of accounts when there's duplicates? You know, that kind of stuff. And there's a few other common mistakes I have in the slides, so do download the deck if you can, or the PDF I put up there, because I took that just from the QuickBooks Online certification event, the exam. They troubleshoot common mistakes, you know. Okay, so start with sales. When you're in the client file and you've just set it up or whatever, maybe you've had it set up for a while, go into the settings if you haven't been in there. You don't need to go to company or bill and subscription. It's mostly sales expenses and advanced. I mean, QuickBooks Payments is different. You probably want to turn that on in every client file because it allows them to, your clients, to be paid by credit card or ACH, and it's free to sign up for it. So payments is, you know, you just consider that on your own whether they want to do that. If they already have their own payment provider, they already do, but this allows easier reconciliation and stuff. For instance, it's free, and the ACH payment is free, except it takes 5 days to fund, but still, free is free. But go to the sales, expenses, and advanced tab. There's stuff that's not default turned on, and I go through some of this in the you know, beyond the basic webinars for service and product-based businesses. But for instance, this is where you turn inventory on, right? It's a three-sided item: inventory, asset, COGS, and revenue. Okay, there's that, and there's even price rules. Like you can create price rules. Let's just quickly tangent off, just to show not really the results, but maybe some. I'll try to go as quickly as possible without hopefully overwhelming you. So settings, right? Inventory. When I go to the products and services list, you can get there from sales. I know. I'm a creature of habit. I just go through the gear icon. And there's, you know, 4 different subtypes of items in QBO: inventory, non-inventory, service, bundle. Bundle's a group item. Service and non-inventory you're going to use a lot. These are great for contractors or anybody passing through time material expense, resellers. They use probably non-inventory parts or service. And then you have inventory for specifically inventory. And inventory parts, what I mean by three-sided, right? You're going to purchase them, you're going to sell them, they're going to hit inventory, asset, and COGS. You can make inventory adjustments, starting value adjustments. You just can't track unit of measure. There's no build assembly. But if I go into cabinet pulls, right? Quantity or value adjustment, you can even set reorder points. It might be good to know, right? It's going to prompt me that it's low stock. Look, I have 6 items that are low in stock, you know. It's going to hit inventory asset. If you buy it, it goes up. If you sell it, it's going to go down, right? Pretty easy. It's like any asset account in the T-chart. Revenue will be credited when you sell it, and then cost of goods sold is debited when you sell it too, not when you buy it. Difference between inventory and non-inventory there for me. When is COGS hit? When you sell it, right? That's why I was seeing some invoices in the COGS account, right, in the batch classify window. Not abnormal, normal. So that's inventory. But the other thing too is you'll have these two-sided items. You don't need to track inventory. In Plus, and this is probably my favorite thing about Plus, I mean, we're in the file, might as well talk about it. Non-inventory or service items are great for this. You can have the item, this one item, this is a generic appliance they sell for $500. It'll credit revenue, right, on the sales receipt and invoice, and it'll also debit COGS when I buy it. So non-inventory parts, heck, that's probably predominant of your product-based businesses. They're probably not doing a lot with inventory. They're probably using non-inventory parts. But if you're not in Plus, you can't have the item be two-sided. In other words, I can use this on a check or a bill or a credit card expense and sell it. Right? One item stands for both the cost of goods sold as well as the revenue, depending on what form I'm on. You need QBO Plus for two-sided items. So, good stuff. I wish it tracked unit of measure, hopefully one day, and there's no build assemblies. Now, if you are estimating against, if you're creating invoices against estimates, estimate would be like a bid or contract, it's non-posting, then you want to turn on progress invoicing, also in QBO. So you can progressively invoice against an estimate until it's closed. There's even a report on that. All right, expense settings that are important to consider. For your contractors or service-based clients, probably the most important three. Anybody that you have that wants to pass through time, expense, material to an invoice, or they want to see profit and loss by a project or a sub-customer. We'll call it job. These three settings are only in Plus, and they're really important. You need to turn them on. They're not default turned on. Show items table on expense and purchase forms. Well, what does that look like? Let's go look. Let's go to an expense. Say I'm buying some stuff off Amazon, some items to resell, or to use on a job, or I go to Lowe's or whatever. You come up with your own scenario. There's tons of examples where this would be in play. I'm going to do Amazon, right? Oh, yes, the drawer. We'll talk about that. Might as well now, but I feel like then this starts to confuse people. You need to train your clients about the drawer that kicks out on the right. Whether you're on a customer invoice and it shows estimate or time material to pass through, or you're on a bill or a check or a credit card expense, and like there's an open bill. So if I was to use this expense to do this $100 bill to pay it off, why is that bad? Yeah, it doesn't actually close the payable, right? And it duplicates the expense because the bill on November 18th already debited that cost of goods sold or expense. So when you do a check or a credit card expense and there was actually a bill to the vendor, you're not taking care of the AP on the balance sheet, and you're also duplicating expense. So you want to train your clients that when you're writing a check or a credit card expense and there's a bill, hey, wait a minute, maybe I need to do a bill payment check, right? And the drawer will also show any open purchase orders, you know, that kind of stuff on the expense side. So remember the drawer. We'll come back there again. Don't worry. But it's important. Now notice, In Plus is the only one that can do this. On a cost form, cost meaning expense, check, bill, right? Here, look, plus sign, expense, check, bill, right? These are all, purchase orders non-posting. The rest are posting, okay? On the customer side, invoice, received payment, credit memo, sales receipt, refund receipt. These are all posting. Estimate, delayed charge or credit are non-posting. Obviously, you got more posting transactions than non-posting. We're talking about cost forms now, right? So on this form, I could buy some items, right? Or accounts, but I could hit some more appliances. Okay, we'll say we bought, 10 of them. And then there's freight, so I can hit freight. Cost, I don't know, $200, heavy appliances, right? This is going to debit the cost of goods sold and credit, my payment method. We'll say it's credit card. Cal Oil credit card, right to Visa. Right. So that's what this will do. But look what I can do. That's those settings, right? This setting of show items table, this on a bill, a check, credit card expense, it allows me to buy items to resell them. In Essentials and Plus, you don't have an items table. It's just accounts. Okay? So that, for me, is like, why wouldn't I be using Plus if I'm any kind of company? All right. Track expenses and items by customer. This allows me, plus only, but allows me to do profitability by, right? So I can tag, not freight, but, I can tag this particular job we're doing, the Tasha Tour job, because there's appliances I'm bringing out for that, right? And then the last setting to consider, make expense and items billable. That's going to be that's going to create uninvoiced time charges that will go to, one second, I'm struggling with the bill, there we go, billable box, okay. Let's do the freight. I don't know why it's doing this on me. I'm going to try to make it a little different. Billable. Yeah, see? Check it off. So when I go to an invoice, or I just go to the Invoices tab or Customer tab, QBO is going to be anticipating that I'm going to be passing through this expense to an invoice. And you can do that on time, you can do that on expense, bill check, but you have to turn this setting on, right? So important things to consider. I'll just click Save and Close, and we'll come back and look at that. Now, the Advanced tab. Important for automation and other things. Where is Settings? Accountant Settings. Advanced. Yes, if you want to show account numbers, you can do that. Remember the chart of accounts in QBO? Since we're in the client file, might as well mention it. It's only going to be ordered within each type alphabetically or numerically. If you have numbers turned on, there's no diamond. I can move them around and change the order within each type outside of those two. And thus, the reports inherit that order as well. We're working on that one. I think that would be an awesome enhancement to allow more flexibility with the order of the chart of accounts within each type. But for right now, that's what it is. Remember class location we talked about? Automation. You can. Remember, we just did time. I mean, not time, but I had an expense form, and I made it billable. I can create a global setting. You're seeing it right now that will create invoices for any customer that has unbilled time, material, expense tagged to them, or any project or any sub-customer, right? That might be too global of a setting for you. That's okay. Go to a recurring transaction, because we're going to move on to this automation data entry now. I'm going to bank feed soon. But when you go to recurring transactions, you might know this is called memorized transactions in desktop. Same kind of thing. You can create a recurring template to automatically enter across any transaction type, except for a customer received payment, a bill payment, or a paycheck. You do this with journal entries, right? The prepaid expenses, the reversal entries. Some people create reminders from these, from like a $0 transaction. I do it with invoicing and sales receipts a lot, bill, check, rent, whatever. So recurring transactions, right? I have one specifically for Rafal. Happens monthly for $2,000. He actually rents a farming auger from us. But I do other work for him on the side, and I don't want that to be lost. It's rarely that I invoice him $2,000 a month. It's more like 27 or 33. Prior, one of our larger customers. Look, include unbilled charges. Anywhere I tagged him on time, material, or expense. Let's just go over that one more time. It could be a bill or a check or time. For instance, you have a lot of law firm clients. They are always about invoicing against time. That's it. That's for them, is time to an invoice. You can automate that globally, which I would do for a law firm, or you can set up recurring invoices for each client, if you want to pick and choose what time goes to what invoice and have more control. Architecture firms, also another great example, always about time. Engineering, how long it take on a project. So they would choose the project, right? Choose the service item, okay? Whatever they did. I don't have a really good example. Got to have a better example for this, like framing, whatever. Just pretend it was something else. Billable, right? This is for the invoice, though. Say it was 4 hours. Class location tracking if you want. Now, this is non-posting, okay? But it'll want me to create an invoice, So that's what I mean. Pass through time, material, expense. You can do it globally. You can do it from like a recurring transaction. Include unbilled activity. When this invoice is created, it's going to pick up any unbilled time, material, expense, and add to it. And then automatically send. That's sales receipts and invoices, right? And if you have payments turned on, even better. Just more automates getting paid, particularly a sales receipt with the ACH, right? You put in the banking routing number, you just monthly services. It's set it and forget it. That is just QBO without any other apps. So, but look, when I go to an invoice, just go back and tie off the drawer story, put in Tasha, the drawer is going to kick out with, time, expense, estimates, delayed charges, cost, anything that, QBO's thinking, well, you want to invoice against this, right? So remember, train your clients on the drawer. I'd say it's one of the most important things. So I can add the billable time and the billable expense. And now this is a posting transaction, right? This is going to credit revenue and debit AR. Then I'll receive a payment later. Now, a couple things to talk about here. We got another 15 minutes to go, so hope you guys can hang tight. On any transaction that's saved, if you want to see what was debited and credited behind it, just like desktop, all you see is like the top portion, the bottom portion, items, accounts, whatever, the name of the transaction, the name of the vendor or payee or customer. But what was debited and credited? You probably have it in your mind, but you want to see it for sure. Click on the More tab down here, print, preview, make recurring, customize, more, where you delete and void. Transaction journal. This is the debit credit report behind any transaction that's saved. Okay? So I can see that, AR is going to be debited. Yeah, that makes sense. And then what was credited, right? Sometimes you'll see, I guess they didn't have any sales tax, but you would see it. Okay? So that can help when you're trying to figure out what really happened. So do that. Any saved transaction. Okay. Let's talk about AR in a sec. Other automation, I usually just leave them unchecked until the client proves me otherwise. Again, you don't have to do the global automation of unbilled activity in an invoice. You could do a recurring transaction specifically for different clients. This one turns it on for every client. Anybody has unbilled time. And then the automatically apply credits, bill payments. These I leave off because it always applies to the next invoice or the next bill in line. That's not always good. And then pre-fill forms with previous entered content. It's for all names, not just vendors. So again, I usually just leave this off unless somebody proves me otherwise. Project tracking, if they're going to do projects, do it. Time tracking's here, but it's also in Essentials, and you got multi-currency. All right. So key advanced settings and payments, definitely a good one to consider. All right. We looked at one way to automate data entry, right? The other way to do it is through bank feeds. And we'll come back to accounts receivable and where that mistake is. So, banking. But remember that drawer. I think that's an important thing to take away from today. And train your clients on it. You'll see it on invoices on customer side. You'll also see it when a client goes to write a check and they have an open payable. The drawer will open up, reminding them they have a bill. If they don't want to write that check, it duplicates the expense. Okay. So, bank feeds. Hopefully you're doing a lot with these. As much as you can, and it works out for your clients, you're going to want to connect their checking account and their credit card account. It's the best way to get the data in and create rules to properly categorize and choose the right payee, but also for automation of data entry. I showed you recurring transactions. That's the other way. But this is going to be most of your data entry is going to come in because regardless of the client, they're going to have a credit card or two or several or, a bunch of sub-credit card accounts. They're going to have a checking account or two, and they'll have their phone. And they can do the bank feeds on the phone too. They can't create rules there. I like that because I really am a firm believer that it's the firm, the accountant, the trusted advisor that actually creates the bank rule, not me. Me meaning your client. Sure you guys are nodding. So if we look at, I have this checking account, and I only have 9 transactions left, 7 are recognized. So you want to turn things green. So within each card, I have checking account and 2 credit cards. Within the checking account, 9 unaccepted transactions, meaning they haven't been added to the registry yet. 7 of them are green. That's good because last time from Zeng Building Supplies, it went to the job material cost of goods sold account. Staples, I created a rule for it. When you're starting to see consistent purchasing, like Zeng, there's 3 of them. I mean, sure, you can always batch, modify. All the batch functionality, by the way, is at the bank feed level. Batch modify, batch accept, batch undo, batch delete, batch exclude. It's all done here. There's no real other batch functionality in QBO, right? But I could, choose a bunch of transactions that are the same vendor, choose the right one, the right category, class, location, But I did this earlier today. It remembers job materials. But I should probably go create a rule. A rule just allows me to make sure it's remembered every time. But we want things to be recognized so that you can just literally batch accept, and it puts it into the register, right? So now, 2 records, fine. We'll get to rules. This means that for Rafal, there's a payment for $2,000 and a sales receipt for $2,000. It wants me to match the lump sum deposit that came in from the feed with probably the received payment. But I can drill down and look further. Both from the same day. My guess is this one's a duplicate. So you can drill in to see what happened, but when you see 2 records found, that's matching so that it doesn't duplicate the revenue. Because the revenue is already in the register, or at least it's in undeposited funds or something, So there's that. Amazon's uncategorized. Look at that. When you see things uncategorized, sure, you can choose what it is. Like maybe this would be job costs or something, or maybe it was job materials they purchased off of Amazon. I was with a client once, and they wanted to do an auto rule for most of their vendor purchasing is Amazon. I mean, I'm sure you're seeing a lot of that too. It's just the way it is. So I could set that. I could even do some job costing here, or do a class or location, and here's the bank detail. But I leave it uncategorized for a reason, because I have like 3 different rules for Amazon. All right, so let's talk about the rule. Let's talk about rules in general. As you're seeing typical things happening in the register from the bank feed, or you come into the For Review tab within the card, and you're like, oh yeah, they're purchasing from Amazon all the time. Create a rule for that. And it's not abnormal to create multiple rules per vendor just based on their purchasing activity. Because the goal is to get it green. Because then you can batch accept it in. But there's another thing tool. Let's go to rules. So you're going to start creating rules. Let me show you this Google rule. Good example. It's got a little green icon with a plus sign. You're going to create rules for as much as you can, as much as it makes sense to. Yes, QBO will remember next time, and it'll turn it green for you. But I think a rule really confirms it to know that it always goes to the payee and always goes to the category or the proper split. And you can do like a class location as well. So you name the rule. It can be for money out or in. Okay? And then when a transaction meets, this is the most important sentence of the window. If you have it set to all, that means all of these must happen in order for this to happen. If it's set to any, then, any of these could be in play, and then it's going to create a credit card expense to this category for this class. Yes, you can do splits and all that stuff for percent, amount, and class, which is nice. But notice this at the bottom, automatically add to my books. This would be for the expenses or purchases that it's always the same. Google advertising is always the same. It's $39.99 a month. It always goes to advertising. I never need to review it or approve it or whatever. I can just check it out in the register or from a report. So when the feed comes in and QBO sees Google in the description or the bank details, it's going to do this and just put it in the register for me. So this is another way to automate data entry. We looked at data entry automation and recurring transaction level. You also have it in the bank feed. Okay, but you got to be careful with the rules and how much you're really automating. If I had to review this one, I would uncheck the box, right? It's not default checked for a reason. And you should be doing the rules, because once the client sees the automation, they're just going to check it all off. And you can batch undo, sure, but it takes a while to clean that up. So you'll know when to check it off. It totally bypasses the For Review tab and goes right into the register. Yep. And how do you see the breadcrumbs? So when I go to a vendor for Google, let's look at this expense. In the upper left of the transaction, you'll see online banking matches. Always, on any transaction that came in through the feed, a check. I know there's no payee with a check, but soon you'll be able to download the statement with the bank feed. That'll help. So checks, deposits, expenses, debit card, credit card expenses. You're going to transfers. You're going to see online banking match. The date, the type, amount, automat, and the mode. Look at the mode. So this is me tracking the breadcrumbs back to what happened in product. The mode is automatically added with a rule or manually added with a rule. If it's automatically added, that means it was never even in the for review tab at all. As soon as the rule was applied, it was in the register. So you're automating data entry, right? If it's in the for review tab, it's not yet in the register, right? You have to go accept it. But at least you can do that in a batch. So net, the story here is that you can automate data entry, but also at least auto-categorize it and choose the right of payee and class location. Rules don't impact job costing yet. Now, this $39.99, if I had another line item, like for something else, say like, I don't know, bad debt or something. Google owes me money. Look, classes, right? Just to tie off classes, you guys probably already know. So there's, class you can have at each line level for the split. So for a P&L by class, the $39.99 will go to this class in the P&L column for the profit and loss by class report, or department division, whatever you're calling it. And then $100 go in the other column for new construction, right? The total $139.99 goes to this location, right? So that's class location right there. You're seeing the difference. And remember, look, I could tag a job. I can make it billable. Billable pass through an invoice. Tagging it just is for a profit and loss by profitability, right, for a project. Okay? So there's that. Those settings matter. I go over that. I think Wednesday I have the service base beyond the basic. We'll dive deep into that stuff. But it all comes back to like projects that you can turn on for your client. And literally they can track. If I go into the, what's the good one? Is it the remodel bathroom? I can see all the transactions linked to the project, the reporting, the profitability, and add transactions to the project. Soon we'll have, I've seen it, you'll have project costing for labor burden in here, and a chart and graph or something for income versus expense and profitability. I mean, for service-based businesses, we are really building out profitability and project tracking. It's a setting you turn on, and it works best in Plus. Because why? Two-sided items, and you can tag customers, project sub-customers to expense and time. Pass it through, right? Got to have it for that stuff. You need Plus. Essentials will not do. All right. Wish that receipts from HubDoc could be added to expenses recorded with automatic rules. So that actually is. It depends how you sync it, unless we're talking about something different. I'll do that at the end if you want to stick around, Alexa, because I have a QBO file as a client that has HubDoc, and I usually set up the sync and choose the customer and job. And it should, oh, right, sorry, recorded with automatic rules, right. It just matches to the bank feed. Thank you, true. Yep, that just matches to the feed. So you're just, it turns it green at least, right? 2 records found, so I'm just going in and clicking match or, batch accept, which is either add or a match. But true, yeah, that would be sweet. I see what you mean. Sorry. Yep. At least it'll match, but true. In some, it'll actually interesting. I wonder if you have any clients like this. Some using HubDoc because it fetches, I think, better than most of the other apps that do data fetching. And you can bring down the statement with pictures of checks and stuff, or check images. But some people won't even turn the feed on and just have HubDoc send it all over. And that's automating data entry really from another perspective. And then they just don't turn the feed on, for that particular account or whatever, because the data entry is already coming over anyway. So, okay, you would know more than me there. You have clients, I don't. Okay, the bank reconciliation, let's talk about that a little bit. We got just a few minutes left, and then just go through some key common mistakes the clients will make. I know we hit OBE. We talked about the drawer and how AP and expense can get mushroomed. And then, yeah, auto entries I hear is a good one. But yeah, I like HubDoc as well. So reconciliation, I always get asked, where's the discrepancy report? So still a little different from desktop, but when you're in the reconcile window, when it says hold on, and we can help you fix it. Now, this is the discrepancy report. again, I can view that this is going to take me the audit log. It's deleted, right? Sometimes when they just change the amount or something, you can type it back in, like inline edits, but I can't do anything when it's deleted or voided. I have to go recreate it. But it shows you the total discrepancy difference. So this is kind of the reconcile discrepancy report when you click on the link from here, right? Now, history by account. Click on that because this is where you go to undo. As well, you can see auto adjustments. I auto adjusted $1. Who cares? But sometimes you'll see $300 or $500 and they just didn't know. So you can undo it. Only you can though, meaning the QBOA team member, not your client. And then here's the old like summary report that we put back in. Some people use this for audit purposes. The account, bank, statement, ending date, reconcile, right? And then history by account too. The other way to see the changes, because you probably reconcile way more than I do. But when you view the report itself, the top, if there is a change, will show, discrepancy up here as well. So I also check the box, just as a tip, hide additional info, because when I scroll down, it'll turn off everything. I'll only be able to see everything up through 1031. The statement ending date. So that checkbox is important, right? I shouldn't say anything past that, and I don't. Because if you don't check it, you'll see November, December, maybe stuff they post dated in January. So check this box, hide additional info. And then you reconcile as you do, right? And you guys do that better and more than me. But just that's the discrepancy, right? Now, chart of accounts. I don't know if I actually have any examples, but important to know, and then we'll talk about, just go back to the slides and finish. When they create duplicate accounts, mostly around income or expense or something. I think I had a travel one that was, I probably already merged it though when I was out last week as my example. But the important thing is this. When you create an account, let's just edit this office supplies. There's a detail type, right? Now, typically you already know the type it's going to be. You create, it's an expense and you name it. But when you're creating QBO, it wasn't really accountants in mind. It was like, me, the end user, your clients. And I might not necessarily know what type of expense it is, so I can choose, what type it is and then name it. Now, we never removed this superfluous field. Really, it is superfluous, a detail type. I mean, it doesn't matter for us, for you. But, and since you're way more involved in QBO, but I know of nothing on the roadmap that removes this, but still, just know that it matters when you're merging or importing from Excel. Got to have the detail type. When it's converting from desktop, we already do that in the tool, right? The conversion tool. It's already assumed. But when you're merging two accounts together, if they don't have the same detail type, you'll just get a pop-up that tells you, oh, wait, one of your accounts, they have to have the same detail type to merge. So you'll just go and figure out the consistent detail type and then merge them. And merging them is just naming it to the exact one you want to merge it into, right? And all transactions roll up into there. It's the same kind of merging approach, but that's something that they'll go over in the QBO cert as well. I mean, you'll merge duplicate accounts. Just know that in QBO it has to be the same detail type, and detail type is just always going to be this asterisk, a required field. Detail type and the name. It's required. Okay, so just some people get confused with that, but it only impacts importing and merging. It shouldn't really matter the rest of the time. Detail type, maybe just a pebble in the shoe kind of thing. All right, now let's go back to the deck. Pretty much covered most of that stuff, but there are some slides in here of other mistakes, and we're going to kind of blow through it because we've already looked at some of them, right? Detail type, how to merge in product. Now, if you are merging bank accounts or credit card accounts that are connected, you have to undo the connection first, right? You actually have to remove the connection from bank feeds, which is the pencil icon, disconnect upon save, then merge. Make sure you add everything from the forward view tab, because it'll blow it all out, right? So there's that. Batch or classify, we looked at, okay? Yeah, not really there. Oh, parent credit card setup, multiple credit cards. The theory is, depending on the bank, do not connect the parent, connect all the sub-accounts for the credit cards. Okay, that's the main thing. And we'll just kind of blow through here because this is beyond bank recs we looked at. Just, and you guys are doing that more than me, but it has some good troubleshooting stuff. Now, other mistakes, right? Item mapping, we talked about opening balance equity when they're adding new list elements, accounts, customers, vendors. Now, here's the one I wanted to get to. AR, okay? This is a really unlikely scenario. I got an open invoice. Your client receives a payment as a check. They actually enter a check. Right, so it reduces bank account and reduces income, but the AR is not affected. But you probably don't see this much. They want to receive a payment against it. However, the one that's more likely is they'll have an open invoice. They go receive the payment in the register or a deposit and skip the received payment. AR is not closed. Income's overstated. Why? Because they would have hit the income account when they made the deposit, not realizing the invoice already did that like 2 months ago. Because that's what customer invoices do, right? Debit, AR, and credit revenue. So you probably see this one often. Yep. And then the correct, wait, is this still? Oh, yeah. This is the other one. Undeposited funds. Teach them about undeposited funds. Undeposited funds is when you group payments into a deposit, and then you make that lump sum deposit to the bank so it matches the feed. Are they depositing from the sales receipt or the received payment window to checking specifically, which just creates a bunch of individual payments to deposit and it doesn't match this lump sum? Or do you want them to go to undeposited funds? And most do. I think it's 90% of the use cases is undeposited funds, is you want that to happen, but there's no default setting in QBO for that yet. So you'll see the field on the received payment window or the sales receipt. Hit undeposited funds so that when you go to plus sign make deposit, that should match the lump sum deposit they see in the feed in 2 or 3 days. So it matches the bank feed better for revenue. But even just without the feed, it's just better. Undeposited funds. And sometimes they'll also leave stuff in undeposited funds without making the deposit, right? Or they'll receive the payment and put it in undeposited funds and then go make a deposit in the register. I'm sure it's all over the map what you've seen. You don't want a high, undeposited funds or an inaccurate one on the balance sheet, so you're probably drilling down on that anyway. And that's why it's in the overview tab, undeposited funds. So the proper flow, right? Create invoice, customer invoice. Receive a payment to undeposited funds, bank deposit, close undeposited funds, move it to checking. Right? This is the proper map, if you will, for AR. And then from the sales receipt, similar, one less step, right? Because you're going right from the sales receipt to undeposited funds to make deposit. Yeah. Right? We're all good with invoices versus sales receipts, right? Invoice accounts receivable, sales receipts not. Take care.